You've launched your podcast, your episodes are out there, but there's no plays. Why? That's not what you had hoped. People are scrolling by, they're skipping by, they're browsing for the topic, but they're just not hitting play. It's because every episode competes for attention. And if you're not optimizing the way your podcast shows up, it doesn't matter if you have great content. Before they even hear your voice, they're already missing the most important part. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about the 5 decision drivers that determine whether someone clicks play on your show or just keeps scrolling. These aren't about your mic setups, they're not about your editing software, and they're not about post-production. They're about how to get someone to listen to your episode. Let's go. Welcome to Podcast for Success, produced by City Media Group, where creativity meets strategy and smart shows are built with smarter tools. Whether you're navigating the best systems, diving into the latest AI tools, or want to know behind the scenes moves that takes your show from idea to air, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Stacy Maynard, and each time we talk about branding to batching to setup and scale, welcome to your shortcut to creating a podcast that works. This is how you can podcast for success. Let's hit record. Okay, let's dive into the first decision driver. This is the episode title. It's the first hook, and it's often the only thing that someone sees before they decide to listen. Everyone talks about content, and yes, content's extremely important. We need to hold their attention, but we first need to get their attention. And the first way to get their attention is with the title. What are they searching for? What kind of topics? And are you clearly defining what the episode's going to be about and what they need to listen to or why they need to listen to it, right? So think about those keywords. Are they in your title, right? Sometimes what ends up happening is that when we're doing content and we put it out there and we kind of come up with a title and it's like, well, that makes sense. You know, that's what the episode's about. But are you front loading those keywords, right? Like, are you saying how to grow a podcast? Maybe my experiences, is it being passive versus telling somebody exactly what they're going to be hearing, right? People like numbers. I'm using the 5 decision drivers, right? Somebody likes that as opposed to, hey, here's some ways that you can help people get some more listens, right? It's very specific. So when you're vague, not a lot of people might be clicking on it. So again, your episode might be amazing. Your video might be amazing. Your article, your post, all of that stuff might be amazing once they get into it, but we want to get them to click. So think about that title, think about how you're describing it and what makes sense for them to click that play button. Decision driver number 2, I want you to think about the cover art, right? The only place in the podcast space is your podcast thumbnail. Now, obviously in social media, you have multiple ways to be able to grab their attention visually with different graphics and stuff like that. On YouTube, again, great way because you have that individual thumbnail that has the title and all of that stuff on it. But in podcasting world, we don't have a lot of attention, but it is important, right? So when you think about how you're putting your episode out there, think about your cover art. So is that grabbing the attention? So do people know as soon as they see that cover art what your podcast is about? Because again, if they're looking and they're Googling and they're searching, they may come across your episode title, or they might come across your show in general, in which case they're going to see your cover art first after your title. So again, make it easy to read. Don't put a whole lot of words and stuff like that on it. Because remember, it's really small, so it needs to be easy to read. Make sure it's on brand, right? Think about the colors that are going to be attractive to your audience. And again, keep it consistent. Decision driver number 3 is all about the description. Remember, they haven't even clicked play yet. They haven't even made a decision on whether they are going to listen to your episode. So they've seen your title, like, okay, that looks good. They've seen your podcast artwork or your artwork on any of your channels that you're on. They're like, okay, that is pleasing to the eye, let's just say, but the description is your final chance to convince them that your episode is worthwhile. So what do they need to see in that description? Well, they need to know what they're going to learn or what they're going to hear when they click play. right? They need to know. So it's like, okay, this is what the title was. That makes sense. And now you have a description just to kind of expand on that concept, right? They need to know what they're going to be hearing. They also want to know who it's for. They want to know if it's for them, because I've seen a lot of different episodes and social media posts and videos and stuff like that where it's actually for a different audience. Even though I found it in my search results, I wasn't the audience for that video or for that piece of information or for that content, and that's okay. But they also want to know why it matters. Why is it important that they listen? Why is it important that they watch this video? Why is it important that they consume that content, right? Don't, go on about, the fluff and here's all the things and every single thing about, in today's episode, we talk about this, we talk about that, we talk about this, right? They want you to get to the point. So it does need to be short and concise. That's why bullet points are really important, bolding that text, highlighting those key takeaways, all of that stuff, very important when they're looking at an episode description or any sort of piece of content when they go, okay, I'm going to give you my time. I'm going to see if this is going to be something that I want to click play on. Even if they click play, okay, you got them, right? You got them with the description, you got them with the title, and they're ready to go. This decision driver number 4 is that first 30 seconds, maybe even only 10 seconds, but you've got their attention, right? You've got them to click play. That's awesome, but you have to keep them. That's the most important part. You've got them, you think, okay, well, they're ready to consume the content. They know how long your episode is, right? They've looked at all the things, and now they've decided. But if your intro's too slow or if it's too long, you'll lose them before they hit any value, right? If you kind of go into the whole, okay, in this episode, remember, I'm going to be sharing this, I'm going to be sharing that, a big long bio if you have a guest, like those can get really, really monotonous. And again, you've already lost them before the episode even begins. So that's why it's very important to dive in. As soon as you start talking, dive in. I didn't talk too much before this episode began because I wanted you to hear right away the content, the first decision driver. I didn't go into a big bio. I didn't go into the recap of what we're going to talk about. We talked about what I'm going to talk about sort of in my pre-intro, right? And then I dove right into the content. And that's the most important thing. Do not ramble. Do not become unclear. You will lose them. And that's the most important thing, is to keep them, right? That first 30 seconds, and I'm going to say even 10 seconds can be too much. But again, avoid the small talk, avoid all that stuff. Keep them hooked with value because now they've given you your time. Even great content can flop if it feels out of sync with what your audience is going through right now. So again, you've hooked them with the title. They gave you an opportunity. They saw the visual aspect of your content. Great, I'm in. They read the description. They're like, oh, this sounds like something I want to listen to. They've given you like 10, 30 seconds of their time. And it's like, okay, this is great. I'm in. As long as you stay on track, right? Make sure that it's not a bait and switch. You don't want to sit there and think, oh, okay, I'm going to listen, I'm listening, and then you don't get to the point. Or you don't solve that problem that you promised in the description, right? So you need to make sure that you're continuing to give value through that episode or through that piece of content so that it's aligned with what they need, right? Their problem, what's going on, keep it current. And remember, stay on track, because what happens a lot of times is people start to ramble a little bit. They talk for 10, 15 minutes, and they still haven't really gotten to the point, right? Or they said they're going to talk about one thing, and then all of a sudden they switch and they start talking about other things, and they never ever get to where they have solved the problem that you wanted to hear in the episode at all. So remember, relevance and timing, but stay on track. And remember, evergreen content, right? You don't necessarily know when people are going to be listening to different things. So be careful when you're really focused on dates. Think about those batch recordings, right? A lot of people do that in the summer or in the winter. They batch record. So think about, when is that episode going to go out? Because if you're talking about something in February and it's August, does that really make sense? right? So think about that aspect too, because what's going to happen is they'll drop off and they won't feel like you understand what they need, even though your description kind of laid it out. So remember to stay very relevant throughout your content so that you do solve that problem, and make sure that you're not just hooking them in with a title, hooking them in with a description, and you never get to the point. Keep talking about what you said you were going to talk about, keep them engaged, and make sure that they leave with, yes, they understand what I'm going through, they understand me, and I'm so glad I listened to this episode because that's exactly what I needed to hear right now. Okay, those are your 5 decision drivers. And if you want more people to press play, remember your content starts before your content, right? So as a recap, we have your episode title, very important. It's going to show up in the search results. That is going to get someone to be intrigued by what it might be about. Your visuals is going to go, okay, that makes sense to me from a visual perspective. Your description, they're going to read it and go, yep, okay, I'm in. That sounds like exactly the episode or content I want to consume right now. You hook them with your first 30 seconds, and then you keep them hooked with being relevant to them, and make sure that you cover the content that you promised in your description. I promise you, if you optimize these 5 things, it's going to make it easier for people to find you. It's going to make it easier for people to connect with you, and it's going to make it easier for people to stay with you. So keep talking, keep them engaged, and remember, keep creating and keep showing up. Thanks for tuning in to Podcast for Success. If you're ready to work smarter and grow your show, be sure to follow, rate, and leave a review. Want even more tips and tools? Visit podcastforsuccess.com, where we share more free resources, behind-the-scenes setup, bonus content, and the latest digital trends. Until next time, keep creating, keep recording, and keep showing up.